This is Rocky with Rocky's Reality, and you're listening to Motor City Woman Radio. Music, relationships, life, black culture. Or should I just say culture? Right, all that pretty much. More music, educating and entertaining, more black businesses, just more. More me just being me. Sometimes it might get a little 7-Eleven like Beyonce. You can follow Rocky's Reality on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rocky's Reality is now 2 full hours of unfiltered and unapologetic conversation. I was wondering, Beyonce, we haven't, she's like totally been like MIA. Right. Let me check the Instagram. We haven't seen too much. She's probably working on a new album now while we in quarantine, y'all. She's gonna drop a new album. Watch. Anyway, welcome to Rocky's Reality.
Did you see the meme on Beyonce? It says, "Don't worry, Beyonce."
Right. I'm sure many people would love to be her. I'm not mad at it though, but I remember Beyonce from Destiny's Child, so it's like I have watched her grow up literally. Mm-hmm. I still have that writing on the wall. So welcome everyone. I'm glad to see your faces. Joe was like, "Is this video?" I'm like, "Hell yeah!" Quarantine and all. Right. Okay, we look a little. We still look fine. We still super cute now. So welcome to Dr. Joe Kort, who is Dr. Joe. You are like another sexpert. I was on your show, Smart Sex, Smart Love.
Yes. Back in,
what was that, November?
Yeah, it was a while back. It was fun. It was one of the most fun shows I did.
I'm glad because I was like, oh shit. These people don't, when people ask, I was like, people just don't know how crazy I can get. So when there's like, come and be yourself, I'm like, ooh, that means. So Dr. Joe Kort, you are a licensed sex and relationship therapist, trained in sex therapy and imago relationship therapy. Yes. I know what imago kind of means because I have a girlfriend. And look at Dr. Tiffany nodding her head.
She knows too.
Okay, and then you are the director of the Modern Sex Institutes?
Yeah, co-director we give out sex therapy certifications and PhDs in clinical sexology. Yes.
Sexology?
Yeah, that's what I am. I'm a master's in social work, but I'm also a clinical sex therapist, a clinical sexologist.
So sexology is a thing.
It is.
Yeah. I love it. Look at it, all three of you. I love it. I'm excited. And then we have Dr. Tiffany Hall, who is also a licensed therapist as well. Welcome back, Dr. Tiffany, because just like Katrina, Love My Yacht, you all are a past guest. Mm-hmm. So that was part of my goal for 2020, to welcome back old guests, catch up with you. And Dr. Tiffany was on my show about divorce. And we talked about that, but I was like, I gotta have her back for the sex show. Yes. So you've been doing therapy for over 10 years, and you're also a teacher. Bless you.
Yeah.
So you're doing therapy at work and after work.
So I'm a counselor now, so I have officially transitioned from the classroom. So
okay.
Still doing therapy in schools as well.
Right. So you're doing therapy in school and after school.
Yes.
Okay, currently in the ATL area. ATL, shorty. I know they love your yellow self down there.
I am not yellow. So what we're not about to do is start this whole, I'm brown. I just need y'all to know that I'm brown.
Okay. Yeah, I'm yellow. Okay, I'm claiming the yellow. You brown. Compared to me, yes.
Thank you.
All right. But just know I love all the shades, no matter what you are. I love all the shades. That's why I love Black people, because we all shapes and shades.
All shades, and I am brown. Yes.
And then Miss Katrina Benz, another who was on my show that I did on sex. I think you were during my first season. I think you were 2018. Love My Yacht. We connected with Dr. Sabrina Jackson. Shout out to her. So, Love My Yacht. Give me, because I'm sorry I didn't get the email with your bio. So give me a quick little snapshot, because you have a background in law, though.
Yes, I have my master's in criminal justice, also private investigator, paralegal. I dropped out of law school, so I have all of that shit, right?
Mm-hmm. Up until you probably saved yourself $200,000. So,
well, I did it for 25 years. That's a long time.
Right.
And I did it because I had children. I had 10 children, so I had to have that up under my belt, right? So up until 8 years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something for myself. So I went back to school and obtained my PhD for myself in psychology. And that's when I turned into sexology. But for the last 30 years, I've been going back and forth to Thailand, which is my teacher, my Tai Chia, specializing in Tantra and Kundalini. So I'm a Tantra teacher as well as a author, radio and television personality as well.
Right. Wait a minute. So Tantra, is that the sex where you don't touch each other?
You can touch, yeah, you touch yourself with Tantra. You're talking about pretty much, you're talking about energy sex pretty much. And
I'm like, I don't know how I can do it without touching.
Yeah. You know, it's really funny because I have a lot of clients who I do touchless sex with. And they be like, oh my God, I can't believe I can have an orgasm without you touching me.
Ooh.
And I make sure they know that I can. So it's really, it takes you out of the sexual act and take you to more of a spiritual connection within yourself.
Yeah, because it is mental. Orgasms are a mental thing. So I could get that. You have to it is a mental thing. So specifically today, what inspired today was back like end of February, March. It was a whole lot of focus on Dwayne Wade's son or daughter. Zaya is now known, or is it Zaya?
I might be saying it wrong. I thought it was Zaya.
Zaya.
So Zaya is how we spell it. Zaya or Zaya Wade. And I was really fascinated by all the conversation circulating about it. I guess because from my perspective, because I had a gay male best friend in high school, so I've always kind of been integrated into the family, as they used to call it. It was never a big deal for me because my thing is, especially as a social worker, we all eat, sleep, bleed, and shit. So people are just so fascinated. And we're just talking about how he shouldn't change his sex. And I think the conversation just got way blown out of proportion as far as people talking about, oh, he's going to change, he's going to have a sex change, gender reassignment operation, and he shouldn't be doing this, and he's not old enough to know what he wants. And I'm like, people have so many opinions about this. And it's really, as a social worker, I train social workers, and I have to tell them all the time, you have to take out your biases and what you think is appropriate, because some of the shit you're doing is not appropriate in someone else's eyes. So it really made me think about how our biases affect how we perceive sex and sexuality. And a lot of times people don't realize that those are sometimes two separate things. Like your sexuality is one thing and the act of sex is another frame of mind as well. So I wanted to have a conversation with the sexperts on this to try to enlighten people, and not to change their minds. I get it. We, especially those of us who were born and raised in the church. I was raised in the church too. But just to get people to understand that sometimes their views about sex and sexuality get So who wants to tackle this first? Well, you know what? I want to ask Dr. Joe first, because especially since you are a gay male therapist, what your experience has been with this, because I'm pretty sure, or wouldn't be surprised if you had a client who, once they found out you were gay, that kind of maybe affected the way have you found that affected the interaction between you all, or is it that it didn't matter?
For the most part, for me, it's not mattered, because they see it before they come. Although some people, they go to my website, they watch my videos, and then they'll be in my office and say, I had no idea. I'm like, come on, you went to my website, you saw me moving around on video, you have no idea. So, no, but I have never had a bad experience, ever, thankfully.
Okay. So, but in therapy, though, what have you seen as well? And, of course, Tiffany and Love Maya chime in. What have you all seen in your work with sex, how people's biases affect, and people are sometimes just ignorant, too. Mm-hmm. They're just ignorant about a lot of things. So how do you all see that played out in your work?
So I do a lot of counseling with just couples. Most of my couples are heterosexual couples. I did do a podcast not too long ago on my podcast with the same sex couple, and it was very interesting to hear their story. I have tried to make sure that when I do my classes, of course, I do a lap dance class and some other women's empowerment classes, the art of relationship class. So I have to, when I'm teaching my classes, I try to be mindful of using gender neutral language. And I have found that when I do classes for a specific set of people, maybe if it's older women, and I'm teaching certain things, then the biases tend to come out more.
Especially oh yeah. Woo. And I hate to say, like, do you find that it's Black women or just women in general? Because I have to say, in our culture, we are a bit more, we're Bible thumpers sometimes. We're so into our religion. Sometimes we are a little bit more
reserved. Yes, we usually are a bit more reserved. And usually if someone has made it to one of my classes, then the hostess has already kind of given them a little, okay, now.
Right.
When she comes in, so when I go in, I let everybody know up front, like, listen, I was raised in the church too. I have 4 children. I'm a Black woman raised in inner city Detroit. So I believe that we were all created as spiritual beings, but we were created as sexual beings also. And we have got to learn how to marry the two.
Right. And that's how we got here, by sex.
Exactly. And that's what
I tell around sex.
Yes, and that's what I tell everybody. Like, we are all here because somebody had sex raw. Okay? Not that they just had sex, but they had raw sex. And guess what? It probably was good.
Right.
So,
hopefully,
it's okay.
Hopefully, Jesus. Life is too short for bad sex.
Yes. Hopefully it was good sex. So trying to get people to understand that one does not have to cancel out the other. A lot of mindsets, especially with Black women, when I started talking about fellatio, when I started talking about sucking dick, it's like, okay, listen, let's clear up some of these old school mindsets that you all are still walking around with. And so I ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate yourself? And how often do you do it? And what hangups do you have? So that's a conversation. Yes, that's a conversation that we go around the room before I even get started. And then I address some of those mindsets and some of those hangups. So
what is the old school hangup? Can you say? I don't know what those are for Black women.
A lot of what I
in the Black community. That's the stereotype that white women do. That's the stereotype. Yep.
Yeah, and that some women believe that I've even heard you can get cancer in your throat.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. You will get cancer if you do that. Yes. Yeah.
Well, for myself, Rocky, I guess I never really met 100% heterosexual person before, being rather female or male. I'm sorry, I just have never met a 100% heterosexual individual.
Woo! That's controversial. That's a controversial statement.
Woo!
So I can't really speak on that comment because when I teach my classes, people know I'm going to give it. At the same time, they have to be open-minded, okay? So when I say open-minded, I mean sexually free. Free to be able to utilize your conscious versus your subconscious. Because if you're going to come into my classroom dealing with and working off your subconscious, that's everything you were taught from your community, from your childhood, from your churches, from your parents. And that means you're not going to benefit and you spending all that money to see me. So you got to leave your subconscious outside the other side of the door and come to me with your conscious.
Yeah. Wait a minute. So, love my yacht. Right. Joe like,
I like it.
Wait. Let's go into that 100%. No, wait. Wait. Let's come back to that. But I want to get love my yacht. Is that part of what you've experienced as far as people, their biases, how they affect how they view sex and sexuality?
I never have people be biased when it comes to sex. If they try to pretend they biased, within the first 3 minutes, it's over. Because I showed them how to see things another way. Everybody has a perception, but when you introduce them another way of seeing things, like 2 + 3 is 5, but you could turn around and say 4 + 1 is 5. So when you give an individual another perception of seeing things, they become less biased.
I agree. Okay. So Joe, talk about some of your experiences with with that though? Because have you had people who've been in therapy that their issues and trauma manifested in a way because of some of those biases that they were taught? Like, you can specifically speak to that because pretty much you being a gay and Jewish, I'm sure that was like, hell no in your household, right?
Right. So the Jewish wasn't so much an issue because everything was said in Hebrew and I couldn't understand the word they were saying. So I was spared that. That was not, I didn't get that. But the gay, I think most people have a disgust response to sex. It's called erotophobia. And a lot of therapists have it too. If you're outside my comfort zone and you're telling me about something that I don't do or I don't believe in, or for me would be disgusting, then you're wrong. Something's bad about you. Something's not right. That's what most people come from. They even say, the difference between vanilla and kink, kinky being the power exchange and fetish, and where vanilla isn't that. I would say that the more disgusting something feels, the more kinky somebody is. That's where a lot of people draw the line.
And see, that's what I'm saying. What do we distinguish as kinky? Because it might not be kinky to me.
Right.
So it's just all relative.
Everybody have kink to them. Everybody have kink.
Right. And especially if you're in a long-term relationship. Like, so let's right quick discuss that. Like, those of us who are let's of course I have to speak about the current event. But that's part of why I wanted to continue with the show, because I'm so sick of hearing about the coronavirus. I don't know what to do. Yeah, but of course we've got to address it because it's happening during this time. But we can come back. But so what are you all seeing with this pandemic and the sex trends? I saw, Katrina, you were telling people this is the time to experiment. Yes.
Be creative.
Right, because you've got the time. So what are some things the three of you are seeing with sex in this pandemic?
I am getting a lot of married people in my inbox and text messages and stuff that are finding that they are not happy in the space with their spouse, that they are not having as much sex as I wish that they were having, because I'm sitting at home by myself and about to lose my goddamn mind. So how dare you have a hard one right next to you and you're not using it? Like, that's how I feel about it.
Right.
That's how I feel about it. But what I'm finding is that a lot of married people they're a little stressed out, and I don't think that they are having as much sex as I wish that they were having.
Right. And let's be realistic, as a married person, I don't have sex every day. But I'm thinking like 2 to 3 times a week is a pretty good. And there have been times, I've been married almost 18 years. So there are weeks where we haven't had sex, where life has just been ridiculous. But when I start getting an attitude and acting like a bitch and he's acting like an asshole, that's letting me know, it's time. It's like maintenance. And that
means you guys have waited too long when it gets to that point.
Exactly. Okay? Yeah. And we'll be in the midst of an argument. I'm like, you know what? Wait a minute.
Just get naked.
When's the last time? And you know what? I was praying about that the other day. I said, thank God hubby and I haven't had one of our blow up arguments where we've gotten on each other's nerves. Like, we've actually been okay during the pandemic. And like you said, been having sex where we don't have to worry about, are the kids coming? Do we have to rush off to work? Do I have to go to the grocery store? Or do I have to go, here or there? So that actually, for me, has made it more relaxed, because when you're busy, you have to be more purposeful about sex. And you're like, damn, I don't just want to fall asleep. So, because realistically, when you got kids and you're running and all of that, life does exhaust you. So it's not that you don't want to have the sex. It's just like, it can get to be something where you have to be intentional about it. But I think it's like the taboo in America with sex, where it's like, we shouldn't talk about it, we shouldn't express about it, and that suppresses it a lot, where people don't make it a priority. And to me, it's like, it should be a priority.
Yes.
It should, just like you communicate with your mate about different things, sex with your mate should be a priority. So what
I actually think it's unethical as a therapist to work with couples and not have 2 conversations, the relationship conversation and the sexual relationship conversation. I think it's unethical.
Yes.
Interesting. So Joe, you're like, this is something that should definitely be on the checklist of things you address with the couple, just like you would address financial issues.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. I check in with them. What's your sexual style? How often are you having sex? Are you having sex at all? And everybody has their own style, even if they're not having sex. And I don't force this. I don't make them uncomfortable if they don't want to talk about it. But I check in with them. You know, we haven't talked about that in a few weeks. I just want to check in. I just think it's an important conversation. Most couples don't have sexual health conversations with each other.
Right.
And here's the thing about couples. They often fight over contracts they've never made. They fight over contracts they've never made. So they have this, when I see a monogamous couple, they'll tell me they're monogamous. And I'll say, have you negotiated your monogamy? And they'll say, what do you mean negotiate my monogamy? What is there to negotiate? Well, can he send dick pics? Can he do webcam? Can you use your vibrator? Can you masturbate? And then both of them have different ideas about that.
Right, because you haven't actually had that conversation.
No, and they need to.
Absolutely. Go. You nodding your head, Love Maya. You want to chime in?
I agree with that wholeheartedly because I said to a person before, you know, my son, he's about to get married. And he's like, Mom, I'm about to get married because I'm in love. And I said, okay, so you've been with one woman before now, son.
They're so
finna marry her.
When we
So
are,
my first question
so
is, how do you define marriage? What do you define in marriage? Because you got to make sure that y'all are in sync with how y'all define marriage, because everybody define marriage different. And people get married for different purposes, especially when you're marrying somebody who's been with other people before. So you have to be so that's the same way I view sex. I view sex the same thing. You have to ask people, what does monogamous mean to you?
Right.
You have to have to accept it when they tell you. You got to be able to accept it and don't be judgmental when they tell you.
And be very clear though. And be very clear. Be very clear that no, I don't want to share you with other people. Be very clear that that's.
I find that gay male couples talk about this much more openly than straight couples, mixed sex couples, and even lesbian couples. Although lesbians are better than straight couples. Straight people do not have, like in gay male ads, we say what we like first sexually, and then we say, and we like long walks on the beach and going to movies and everything. That's secondary because I don't want to get involved with you and have erotic differences. It's too upsetting to, and we may not make it then.
Interesting.
Listen,
because that does matter with long-term compatibility. You said what, Tiffany? That does matter. I mean, it's not. People are like, oh, money, love. It's how we love each other. But come on now, like especially a time like this, shit, you need to be with someone who you are sexually compatible with, if nothing else. Like, come on.
Yes, and that's why I've been over here shaking my head. I went to a sex conference a couple years ago, and like Dr. Joe was saying, and for me, this was the first time that I had heard these conversations, and I was like, that is genius. Like they were talking about polyamory, you know, polyamorous relations and contracts, and how we need to go into our relationships with contracts, and that we need to be okay with renegotiating the contract. I had never heard that concept before, and now that I know it and I've been doing some work in it and kind of just listening to the conversation, whenever I mention it to most Black heterosexual couples that are married, they're like, girl, whatever.
I'm gonna be real, I'm more on a traditional type. Now, if it's for you, it's for you, but like I said, I don't even like to share my food. But I do believe in having explicit conversations to say, this is a no-no, this shit ain't working. Nope, it's not gonna happen. And if you want it to happen, you ain't gonna be with me. Bottom line. So
and
that's what
that
conversation I had
conversation
with my husband. Like, if you want to go and do what you do and fuck whoever or whatever, you ain't gonna be with me.
Right. But even that conversation is not being had because people just are they're afraid to have that, especially people that are already married. They're afraid to have that conversation. And so, you know, Dr. Joe could tell you, I'm sure Love My Yacht could tell you too, we are the keeper of so many secrets. And it's like, can you just say what you said to me to your spouse? Like, just tell them that you want to be tied up to the bed and spanked, you know, whatever it is you are comfortable telling me, but you're not comfortable telling your spouse. And to me, that as long as we have that, we will forever have this side chick phenomena. We will always have the side dude because we can't be, people feel like they cannot be honest with the very person that most people you vowed that most of the traditional monogamous marriage, you vowed that this is one thing that you did not want the other person to do.
Right.
But yet you're not willing to have a conversation with them about what that looks like. And so then they feel like they have to go out to someone else to get that met. So people have to have those conversations.
Well,
And
guess
I
what? I
realized,
realized,
that you
realized
have to have
Rocky,
conversations about it.
I realized that with my clients, even with myself, I'm not gonna just say with my clients, I'm gonna say myself. I realize so often that I don't know what the fuck I want 100%. So if you don't know
Or
what the fuck
sometimes
you
I might
want,
feel like a
I can
nut, sometimes not.
have an understanding. Because I'm constantly evolving. So I might like strawberry ice cream today and not like it tomorrow because I had too much of that shit. So if you're constantly evolving and you don't know what the fuck you want completely because you're constantly evolving, how can you really understand your true desires? Unless you explore and discover them.
So what are we? So So because so Dr. Joe, do you find that? And this, I think sometimes as a society, we put the pressure on women to be chaste and to be, puritanical and all pure. And that's something why I've been so liberal about my sex conversations, is because I hate the way that they put that patriarchal stance on women that, you should be prim and proper. You shouldn't talk about sex. You shouldn't want sex. You shouldn't like sex. Like, I have literally been around groups of people who are adults like me. They've got more kids than me. And I bring up sex and they're like looking at me and they're just eating their tuna fish sandwich. And I'm like, what? We all over 18 here. We all over 21 here. What's the problem? Why are y'all so uncomfortable talking about sex? So I think society puts those stigmas on us too, and that shame on us. And we talked about, like, with Black women, how a lot of times we're fetishized because of sexuality. So how do you, in your therapy, Dr. Joe, how do you dispel that with people? Because they have to get past their subconscious. And Tiffany and Love My Out, you all can chime in. But what are some things that so right quick, let me ask this. What is imago therapy? Just for people who are not familiar with imago therapy, what is that?
Yeah, and imago therapy can even be about sex too. So, but basically it's that we're drawn to familiar love, that it's not an accident we're with the partner that we're with. They carry the positive and negative traits of our primary caretakers, those who raised us. So, and then we burden them with our unfinished business from childhood. It's normal. We're supposed to do this. It's supposed to happen. And I like it because it's so positive, but it's not supposed to remain this way. So I always thought, because I was gay and I'm going to be with my husband, I've been with him for 27 years, I'll never have to deal with issues with my mother because he's a man. But what happened? I got together with him and I have issues with my mother through him. It's not gender-based. It's the unresolved parent, the parent you didn't work shit through. Yep. So Imago has a whole set of exercises around it. But I don't know if you know Esther Perel. Have you ever heard of her name?
Yes!
Esther Perel.
Yes! I remember I saw she was on your show. I was asking you.
No,
I need the plug, Joe, by the way. I need the plug. I love her.
I was on her show. I would love to have her on my show. But she has a great line. Tell me how you were loved as a child, and I'll tell you how you make love as an adult. That's very Imago. So unfinished business comes out through love and comes out through sex. And we don't know that, and that's why people end up having problems, because they don't understand that there's an underlying issue. It's not what we're fighting about, it's what's underneath and unresolved.
Ooh, that childhood trauma, yes.
Yes, yeah, or childhood negative influencing or whatever.
And then sometimes the things that we thought were love are really not how love should be shown, but that's what we saw.
And then
that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, and then we get angry at our partners.
Right. So yeah, it seems like we kind of attract and get drawn to the stuff that was traumatizing.
Right. And it's an opportunity to heal it, though, right? It's an opportunity. So my mother used to demand a lot of my time, and she would be overbearing to me. So I need a lot of space in relationships. So when my husband says, I need more time, I have an allergic reaction to that because of my mother. But the healing for me is to make more time to show myself that it's safe. And by the way, in quarantine, I have shown myself we spend a lot of time together and it's safe. And it's been very nice. And I don't feel smothered the way I would have been with my mother.
Okay, good. So I want to ask, what led you all to sex as your area, your niche? I know you all do therapy in other areas, Tiffany and Joe, but I want to start with, because I remember Katrina, and this always strikes me when you say this, you was like, sex chose me. I didn't choose sex.
Oh my God, I love that.
I love that. So explain that, and why, which led you to this after your law career, because it's like you jumped from law to sex. So
Honestly, I was molested at a very young age. And when I was molested at a very young age, multiple times, I never felt like a victim. I always felt like a warrior. But then I realized through Eastern philosophy versus Western philosophy that something was taken from me, my innocence, but something was also deposited into me. So my journey wasn't to be a victim. Oh, she was molested as a little girl. No, I want to find out what's inside of me. So that became my journey, to find out what was inside of me. So I went to school, I got these credentials and all this stuff. People said, okay, hey, she's smart, she's making money. That was all bullshit. That was just all for other people. I came to that point and said, now I need to find out what needs to be done with me. That thing that was deposited inside of me, that thing, I need to understand that. So that thing, I knew it was connection with sex because I learned sexual healing. I was paralyzed. I was shot 7 times. I could not walk. I still have a dislocated tailbone. I still have 5 bullets in me, but I walked very well. They said I wouldn't have any kids.
You had 5, what are you?
I got shot 7 times. I was paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
I still have 5 bullets in me now. So I knew that, and I still had 8 babies. I adopted 2, but I had 8 babies all naturally. And the more I had sex, I was having sex, never ever getting the full pleasure from myself. I was always pleasuring someone else. So I said, when I learned the sexual healing and the attributes of sex, not just the sexual act, I learned that was the awakening of that thing that was deposited inside of me. So that's when I went on ahead and said, okay, let me go back to school and learn about psychology. That's when I tapped into sexology. And that's when I said, hey, this helped me, so let me help someone else. Because it's all evolution. Like Dr. Tiffany said, we're created from sex. So that's where it starts at. Sex chose me.
Right. Okay. And I admire how you turned it around and flipped it around instead of it being something that held you back and you're like, you turned it around. So I love that. So how about you, Dr. Tiffany?
I think for me, it was just, I was so curious. I did not have brothers and sisters growing up. I did not have a mother or father who talked to me about sex, but I was always so curious about it. So it started when I was young. Like I remember going to Farmer Jack's, and while my mother was shopping, I would get the Playgirl and Playboy magazine and put it inside of the Highlight magazine and stand there and pretend like I was reading.
The highlights? No, you didn't. The highlights. Oh my God, I remember the highlights. Oh God.
Yes,
Reader's Digest. Ooh.
Yeah, so I would be this little girl standing in the grocery store looking like I'm reading a highlight, and I'm really looking at pussies and dicks, right?
Hilarious.
I used to get so excited anytime. Then when I got in high school, I would read about it as much as I possibly could. I'm the friend that my friends, even to this day, I'm the friend that they all call and say, hey, have you ever tried? What do you think about this? So I was always that girl. I wanted to be a sex therapist when I was in high school. I don't know how I ended up being a kindergarten teacher. No idea. But it has all evolved. I think being in education and being in the classroom and being with the kids, now on the other side of it, working with parents and working with couples, I tell people all the time, don't put me in a box. I can teach your baby how to read, and I can teach the wife how to suck dick. I got the whole family covered. Okay?
Wait a minute, do you have parents who found out that you are also a therapist and they look at you sideways? Like, because that is, again, that might be someone, again, that's that ignorance and bias. They're thinking like, oh, she a sex therapist too. I don't want her teaching my 5-year-old.
No, I don't want her around my husband.
Yeah. Oh. Right.
And I'm cute too.
You said what?
So yes, I think that that is something I have to be it is something that I have to be very concerned about. You know, obviously in the educational realm, I am Dr. Tiffany Hall, and in the sexual realm, that's when I use Dr. Tiffany Lovejoy. And I've been very careful not to let them cross, but it is a hard fence to straddle. And I just have to tell people, do not put me in a box. And it's kind of like the conversation Katrina had. If people come to me with that concern, like, you know, and even I put it off on people because I've had some parents say, girl, I want to come to your classes. And I feel like I have to pull them to the side and say, now listen, you know me as your child's teacher, and let me be very clear. I am very capable in everything that I do. And so I need you to understand that I'm a great teacher in the classroom. I'm also a great teacher at this. And I need you to be okay with that. And if you can accept and embrace me as that, then I can teach you how to step outside of your comfort zone and accept some of these sexual things that you feel like you shouldn't do as normalcy.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
So they've been okay once you had that talk with them.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I have not had.
Now have the men. Now I want to check into what Love Mayat said. Have some of the men tried to get on you though, or even the women tried to get on you because they knew you were a sex therapist?
Of course, I get unsolicited dick pics and videos and
Send them to me, by the way, if you don't like them. I'll give you my cell number and you can just hey guys don't care about those things.
Yes, I don't mind either. It's funny because now my friends call me Professor Penis because I love dick pics. I love looking at them and analyzing them, and my friends are like, how did you see that? Like, I didn't even see that looking at the picture. So yes, absolutely love it.
Dr. Tiffany, I just got to tell you, I love your openness, and I love that you're talking about being a young girl and putting those magazines and highlights. You don't hear women talk like this. You don't hear women own this.
Honey,
and it's so nice.
Wait a minute. That reminds me, my cousin and I used to look at the J.C. Penney catalogs in the men modeling underwear.
Yes.
Calvin Klein.
My friend in high school, Edward, he had Playgirl magazines under his bed, and I used to look at those Playgirl magazines with him. Yeah. Cinemax, anybody? Cinemax
Yes.
is like,
Yes.
And my mom is a nurse. So my mom is a nurse. So she had all of these anatomy books. So that's kind of what stimulated me to Tiffany, is that my mom would have all these little anatomy books about it. And then, once we got cable, that was a whole different thing. Now, I didn't think about the Playgirl and the highlights like you, though. But what were you saying again, Joe? So that's like surprise, that struck you, huh?
Well, it's so nice. I hardly ever hear about it. And all I ever hear is how women are worried about being slut-shamed, which happens, and violence, which happens, right? So that deters them from going forward and being so open the way Dr. Tiffany just thought. So I was enjoying it.
Yeah, well, me too. We've all, as women, I don't know what movie I was watching, but they were saying, like, from the time a woman or a girl is the age of like 12 or 13, you're worried, or not worried about, but you were being accosted and sexualized. Right. And I think part of the issue is too that we say, oh, she's being fast or whatever, when no, she's just growing up. She's being a kid, and kids sometimes do things that we see as sexually inappropriate when really they're just exploring it. And I think as adults, just like I had to tell my son, that is your penis. It's okay to call it your penis. It's a vagina. It's okay to call it a vagina, because society is kind of, and seeing different stuff has made them think like, oh, we can't say those words. No, we say those words. We say.
Can I just say one thing? What I learned as a sex therapist is it's not penis and vagina, it's penis and vulva. And by calling it a vagina erases her sexuality. There's a clitoris, the sensations, the nerve endings. It's a vulva, not a vagina.
Okay.
Or twice yanni. Yeah, vulva yanni.
Okay, so what's the difference?
So the vagina doesn't have, it's a canal to deliver babies. It's not used for, you use it for sex, but it doesn't have those nerve endings that a vulva does, that the clitoris does, that the labia does.
Oh, yes, I love it. clitoral stimulation is yes.
I just love to hear Joe talk about that shit. Like he really know that shit for real, for real.
Well, I used to know this stuff until I became a sex therapist. I didn't know anything about women. Now I know a lot. I even know that
You
women can have
understand that,
performance
pussy, huh?
enhancement.
I love it.
I said, you understand that, huh?
I do understand that.
I love it. I love it though. Okay, you're right. You're right. Thank you for reminding me of that because I do remember that, but I just again, what society? I'm looking too much at, like you said, like the vagina. It's like they're making it like an object instead of.
We're always erasing women's sexuality, always, and even by calling it a vagina. So that's why when you just being a part of this conversation and just having women be so open. I mean, I hear it in sex therapy circles, but I don't. I guess I haven't really been around a lot of Black women talking about so openly like this too.
Well, keep hanging with me, Dr. Joe. We go. I don't. Everyone is not Tiffany and Love Maya, but I got about 3 or 4 more that we can do this. So, Dr. Joe, talk about how you became a sex therapist.
So I had 2 things. I had my sexual orientation and I had my erotic orientation. I always say people have both. An erotic orientation, your sexual orientation is to whom you're attracted. Male, female, both, neither, a blend of both. Then you have your erotic orientation, what gets you off, what brings you to orgasm, what fantasies, what positions. So I was gay. I didn't have a problem as much being gay as I did being kinky. I was very kinky and nobody could explain, we don't teach children about anything other than vanilla, monogamy, being heterosexual. So as a kinky
you
guy,
gotta get married to have sex first, and which I'm like, oh hell no, cause shit, Right. The only person you have sex with, you married to, oh hell no,
Right.
Nope.
And don't masturbate or you'll go blind. And the kid says, "Dad, I'm over here." Right? Did you ever hear that joke?
Oh hell no. Well, I'm glad I can still see shit.
Well, I became, I self-identified myself as a sex addiction, sex addict, and I went that route for 25 years. I regret every day of it. I don't believe in sex addiction.
Were you with women before you were like, look, okay,
No,
so
I always knew there was always guys, but I always had a kinky side that I couldn't accept. So I pathologized it as a sex addict. And I went to all the meetings. I became a sex addiction therapist. I did all this stuff to squelch it. But of course, you never really do. If you go to war with your sexuality, you lose. And you not only lose, you cause more problems than when you started, which is what happened for me. So that's how I became a sex therapist. I'm like, I'm going to celebrate this. I'm going to own this. I'm going to do it safely. My partner and I understand about it. And then I now teach people how to get rid of that shame and the erotophobia, all that.
So talk a little bit more about, you said there's a difference between erotic
orientation and sexual orientation.
Okay.
Erotic orientation are the things that turn you on and get you off. So you might be, like I had a client who was a lesbian, but she was turned on by being violently gang raped by a train of straight men. So her sexual orientation was to women. She'd never been with men and never even been raped. But erotically, she enjoyed that fantasy. That was so. Do you see how the difference?
I can see why. I mean, because dick is great. I mean, I can see why.
Right. Well, and people but they also, people have bad reactions to her though because it's rape, right? But in her mind, it's not. When we fantasize about rape, that's not real rape. We're not fantasizing about having a bloody lip and going to a hospital room and masturbating to that and filling out a police report. In fantasy rape, it's pleasure. Both want to be taken and overtake. Both want to have. Both are interested and they've consented to it. It's fantasy play. It's not real.
Right. Like I want you to be rough with me. I want you to be. That's what I've told my husband. Like I like when you dominate me. Like I am definitely an alpha female all day. But I love in the bedroom when he just takes control and just is like, yeah, daddy, do your thing. Like, so I could get why not as far as like being raped and forcefully made to have sex, but that.
Because that's not consent. This is consent what you're talking about.
Right. Right.
What you and your husband do, you're agreeing to that and you're inviting it and it's good. Rape isn't that. So it's just, not to get into too much of a difference, but the erotic is, here's a lesbian, middle-aged lesbian, feminist activist. And she's imagining this because her erotic orientation is different from her sexual orientation.
I have a question for you, Dr. Joe. How do you enter in that, because this is my first time hearing that. So how do you enter into that conversation with your clients and get them to explore what that looks like? Because now that you've said it, I'm sitting here like, well, what is my erotic orientation? Like, I'm trying to
tell it.
So I will ask
clients.
I'll ask you. I won't ask you here, but I would ask you as a client. What turns you on? Tell me your fantasies. What are your peak erotic fantasies? What are the core erotic themes? You interpret them like a dream, right? So, and tell me, because they all have trailheads often to people's childhood. This is based on a book called Erotic Mind by Jack Moran. Called The Erotic Mind. It's such a great book.
Hold on, wait. Me and Tiffany both like, wait a minute, hold on.
Right, I got my notebook.
Let me make a note of this. You all who are listening, make a note.
It's called Erotic Mind by Jack Moran, Morin. And he basically says, tell me your sexual fantasies. Tell me the things that turn you on. And most of our fantasies are politically incorrect and go against our values. And what we protest during the day is
our values. Whose values, though? Or is it not really our values, but values that have been pushed off on us, though?
Yes, that's true, too. That, too. And so what makes things hot are the things that are politically incorrect, or the things. So the feminist during the day might be wanting to be treated like a bitch at night. The gay activist during the day might want to be treated like a faggot at night. He would never really want that. But in fantasy, his erotic life, it rights the wrong. It takes somebody from victim to victor. You take trauma and make it into triumph.
Dr. Joe Kort, I got a question for you. I have a client, and when you say erotic orientation, I'm like, damn, do I fall into that category too? I have a client, he enjoys public humiliation, but I dominate him a lot, and he pushed me past my idea of norm. So much to the point that I haven't let him see me for almost 4 months now. So he's constantly like, let me see you. I just need to see you. But he did something to me mentally that made my erotic orientation expand to somewhere that's not me, that's so not me. So he took me out of who I am. So would that put me in an erotic orientation?
Well, tell me what you mean. How did he? Because
details, love my details as much as possible, please.
Okay, like for him. Okay. Oh goodness. None of you better not judge me. Oh, this is on live TV too. Shit.
We're not judging. No, if anybody is judging,
this is confidential. Okay, I'll give you another example, but this is confidential. Okay, so I'll give you another example. For example, my client likes for me to have. I don't interact with my clients. So what I would do is I have some other people that I know who's consensual. He likes to be gang raped by women. He don't like no other men around, but he loves to be gang raped by women. So if he doesn't do something I say, I have him gang raped. One time I took him outside of my office to like 10 Mile in Southfield and made him walk back to my office butt naked. That's the type of things he like. And I'm looking like, OMG. If you get
about the police.
That's what I was worried about. But that's what turns him on. He loves public humiliation.
When you say gang raped by women, were they using dildos on him? Or
strap-ons, yes, strap-ons.
Okay.
So he expanded my curiosity because I'm looking like, whoa, I never thought of this stuff. I couldn't even fathom the things that he asked me to do. And it gets really, really deep to the point that I don't want to lose myself trying to accommodate a client. But then at the same time, it expanded my sexual arousing too, because I could tell this guy, you better have ejaculation within 3 minutes. And I tell you, this man does it like this. I say, okay, you got 3 minutes, you got 1 minute, and he does it. And I'm like, damn, the person I'm with sexually can't do that. So I'm really intrigued with his actions and his attributes, how he looks at sex. But at the same time, it gets inside my mind because I'm sapiosexual. So I'm intrigued off of intellect. So he's constantly making me think. So does that put me into that erotica orientation?
Well, we all have an erotic orientation, and yours, he's triggering your erotic interests and maybe expanding them and evolving them.
Mine too. Shit.
I would love to see Dr. Kort have this type of conversation in front of Black men.
Because you talk about Black women, but Black men definitely have a lot of, reservations and it has to be, yeah.
Yes.
Put it together. After the pandemic, I have an office. I have office space that holds 350 people. So we could do it. It's right in Southfield.
Well, tell me about black men. I don't know about us from straight black men, because gay black men aren't reserved at all.
Well, so there is a lot of homophobia still with heterosexual black men. I have a unisex group, private group on Facebook where we talk about different topics. And one of the topics came up where we were talking about just anal play. And a lot of them shut it down. I mean, don't touch it, don't look at it, don't blow on it, don't tickle it, don't do it. Yeah, don't do anything.
They don't want to admit that they like it.
And so I had to say, well, listen, there are lots of nerve endings in the anal cavity, and I try to, and they are just like, Tiffany, we don't want to hear that shit.
But I bet you they want to stick it in their lady booty, don't they? I bet you they want to have anal sex with their woman, though, right?
That's a whole nother conversation.
It's okay for you to stick it and tear my booty hole open, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, right. Exactly.
But here's what. Oh, go ahead.
Dr. Tiffany, what I realize is that they're uneducated, because like I was saying, they're going off of the subconscious, what they were taught and brought up, because a lot of guys tell me that's gay. And I say, well, how? I said, what's the definition of gay? That's the first question I ask guys. What's the first definition of gay? When two of the same sex out, okay, so if your lady is sticking her finger in your butt, or if your lady is sticking her tongue in your butt, that's two different genders. So how is it gay? And those 9 times out of 10, the main ones who are saying that's gay, behind closed doors, they're doing it. Right. I guarantee you to ask Dr. Joe that.
But it's okay for 2 women though to be doing it. Okay, that's the double standard. It's 2 women. If it's 2 women licking each other or having sex, that's not a big deal. And that's the stigma with society too. It was something I wanted to go back to that you all were saying. And you
but
said
before you do, I just want to tell you what I would tell those men, what I tell the straight guys that come to me of all colors that enjoy receiving anal sex on top of it, that are straight men. I say to them, your anus doesn't have a sexual orientation. It doesn't know whether it's gay, straight, or bi. It's an anus, like you just said, with nerve endings. An act doesn't make you gay. That's a behavior, right? But I know. Anyway, sorry. I just wanted to say that, Rocky.
Okay, yes. No, not at all, Dr. Joe. So I wanted to explore that a little bit more, and then I want to get back to how. So first, I want to explore about how this reminds me of an episode of Insecure, and I've even had that thought myself, where like if a man had an interaction with another male, my thing is either you're gay or bisexual. Yeah. You're not fully, as Katrina said, you can't be fully, to me, I don't see it as a fully 100% heterosexual male. If you've had so Insecure, I don't know if you've seen it on HBO, but there was an episode with Molly. Oh, you've got to see it with Issa Rae. It's hilarious. But pretty much Molly, her girlfriend, was dating a guy, and he revealed to her that he had a guy pretty much give him fellatio in college. Mm-hmm. And after that, she was like, he must have some gay tendencies. I don't want to deal with him. So, and I was kind of thinking too, like, if a guy ever told me that, that would make me feel some type of way, that you're not 100%, as Katrina said, heterosexual, because whether it might be because you were young, and we know we're experimenting when we're young, something was there. But my thing was, with Molly, I'm like, okay, this is 20 years later. So it might have been just like he's experimenting in college, but how do we, because that's the thinking, like if you've had a interaction with someone of the same sex, either you're gay or bisexual.
And don't we do that more to men than we do to women?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? I always say that when women have one non-heterosexual thought, she's fetishized. When men have one non-heterosexual thought, he's stigmatized. And it's really terrible, because then he can't talk about it. And the deal is this: men have sex with men for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes they're gay, sometimes they're bisexual, sometimes they're kinky, sometimes their erotic interests are to suck dick or get fucked, but they're not into the guy, they're into the act. Sometimes they've been sexually abused as children and they're trauma reenacting.
Yes.
I see that the most because I'm a therapist, right? Yeah. And that has nothing to do with gay. It has everything to do with trauma. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so many men are tortured, and the wives, when the wives are tortured. You know, I've been actually criticized by straight spouse networks who their husbands have come out having been sexual with men or coming out gay, and I say, well, they're not all gay. Is that me? Oh, it is. Sorry. Somebody's trying to call me. I'm going to get rid of this.
Okay, I'm like, is someone tapping in again? Oh, no. And actually, we are going to go to questions. I know we probably have some people in the waiting room who probably have some questions. So we are going to let people come in. And just as a disclaimer, if you are acting up, if you're being inappropriate, if you're not contributing to the discussion, you will be eliminated from the Zoom call. So, yeah.
I forget what I was even saying, but
no, you were saying that you were straight networks, straight couple networks.
Oh yeah, the straight spouse network has gotten they're better with me now, but historically they were like, how dare you tell me my guy wasn't gay? You're confusing me and you're making me feel like I shouldn't have left him or I should have tried to make it work. And I'm like, I'm not telling you what to do with your marriage, but I'm telling you there are lots of men that have sex with men that have nothing to do with gay or bi. And they still self-identify as straight. But there are people that feel like, is it Katrina? You say your name?
Yes.
A lot of people feel like Katrina, that everyone's fluid, and some people would call those men mostly straight. But it's what the men call themselves. It's not necessarily what we call them.
Interesting. So, or did you want to reply, Katrina?
No, I was just like, my view of sex is totally different because, like I told you, sex chose me. So I love when I interact with the soul who looks outside of the sexual act, because that's only one component. The sexual act is only one component. And when you elevate to a sexual level, spiritually, energy, there's no gender.
Okay.
There's no gender.
Satisfying that energy, those energies are blended. Okay. So let me ask this, Dr. Joe. I wanted to come back to, you said it a couple times, how gay males are more liberal than heterosexual males. And I found that in my interactions too, that people who are LGBTQIA are definitely more liberal. Right. I had to get all the letters out there. I know it's LGBTQIA plus.
Plus, right.
Right, plus. I had to get it all out there. Okay. I'm an ally. I am definitely an ally. So how I've noticed that people who are not of societal's norm of sexuality or sexual orientation, how they are more liberal.
Right.
About sex.
Because we've been forced to, that's the other thing that made me more sexual, is having been forced to explore my sexuality all by myself, having to figure it out, talk about it, and go to people and think about it. Whereas if you're just heterosexual mainstream, then you don't have to do that, and there's nothing forcing you. You do have to do it, but there's nothing forcing you to have to talk about it.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, do you ladies want to add as far as the experiences you've had with LGBTQIA plus clients as far as that?
I really haven't. I really have not had to dig too much into it. Primarily, my clientele.
Not in Atlanta? I'm surprised in Atlanta.
I mean, because here's the thing, and this is what I can appreciate about these types of conversations, and what really has been a wow moment for me, even on this call, is that there's so many levels to this.
It's very
even if you think that you know what you know, there is still something else to add to it. Like Katrina said, we are all always evolving, which means that this whole sexual conversation I'm just happy that we're having the conversation, because
I'm loving it.
It's always evolving. It is always evolving. And so I will be honest and say that working within the lesbian, gay, transgender community, that is not something that I feel 100% confident in working in. And so because of that, I learned a long time ago, if you can't help people, at least leave them alone. Don't make them work.
Refer them to Dr. Joe.
Yes.
To the specialist.
Yes. So I know my lane, and right now that is not my lane.
Okay.
Yes. I'm just trying to get people to suck dick. Okay. I'm just
Right. I will help you out. I'll help you out.
I'm just
All the mouth
real
muscles. The mouth, the cheek muscle. You gotta exercise.
Have you ever heard of this book?
It's not a terrible thing. What is it? Sex tips for gay guys?
Okay.
No, that's not the right book. Darn it. I had it all set up. Darn it. No. The book is called this is the same authors, but Sex Tips for Straight Women by Gay Men.
Yeah.
That's the book.
Oh,
Darn it.
I
Anyway,
love
so
it. Oh, I need that.
because
Let me put
they
that in my
teach women how to
my
have
notes too.
sex with their men and how to suck dick, like Dr. Tiffany was saying.
Well, just do it. Just start. You got to start somewhere. I
know.
mean, geez, it's not a terrible thing. Not good. So, Love My Yacht, have you had experience with that? Well, no, because I know your friend,
My co-host is a transgender.
right, Lexi. I was
Yeah.
cutting up on the show. I was so ridiculous, but whatever. I had a good time.
Is that local, that show?
Yes.
Miss
I'm on
Lexi-
channel WJPR
Oh, okay.
56. Yeah, but I'm also on YouTube. But you know what? I keep telling you, Rocky, I'm so different because I don't believe in titles, and the only time I respect titles, but I don't identify with people according to their title.
Okay,
So I look
feel
at
that.
people.
Not labeling. Yep, not
Yeah,
labeling.
I don't label people. So,
Yep.
one of my best friends is transgender, and what I can say about her is she keep me on my shit. When my hair ain't right, she be like, "Bitch, your shit fucked up. You got to be on TV. Get your shit together. You need to put some damn makeup on. Stop looking all old. Put some damn makeup on. Get with these damn millennial motherfuckers." And I be like, "Damn, I'm doing what? Put some fucking makeup on." So I just respect the honesty because they definitely make transgenders, for one, definitely makes me level up. Okay.
Yes,
They
baby.
teach
Yes,
me.
hunty. Yes.
They teach me so much when
Yes.
it comes to. I told you once again, I don't really be fine with these labels and everything because me for myself, I don't go under. I'm not heterosexual. I'm not bisexual. I'm not any of those titles. Actually, I don't even think it's a definition or a term or a word that defines who I am. I'm still trying to specialize in astral sex. I'm trying to have astral sex, okay?
Astral. Oh shit. Astral
So
sex.
I
What's
told
astral
you, I
sex?
know how to heal my body through sexual healing. So when I have sex, I don't have sex for the mere pleasure of having sex. I have sex to help with contributes of my body.
It's
So sometimes if I have a
definitely
headache, I have sex a certain way. Sometimes if I have cramps, sometimes if I'm hurting from fibromyalgia, I have sex a certain way. So my sexual attributes is different than most. Now, when it comes to different type of genders or whatever, what they do for me is educate me on sexuality more, exploring and discovering. And what I do for them is listen. I listen to them and I tell them what I was taught through school because I can't really identify with everything they're saying because I always tell people, I rather teach what I've been through. What my creator gave me, I rather teach it because I know. Now, I can go ahead and give you some clinical terms and stuff that I read about, that they did a statistic and came up with an answer, but you might be saying, "Yo, my bullshit, that ain't me." So they educate me and I educate them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love it. So what, so I want to open it up to some of our guests, if you all are listening. Elaine, I'm hoping she's still here with us.
I think she's gone. Could people type in their questions just so that we don't have another?
Right, is that possible, Robin? Can we get the chat room going here so we can see them? Right, good idea, Joe. Because at the beginning there.
That was a good start.
You do have to be on the call in order to even chat, but we do have a couple people that I'll just go ahead and admit, and if there's any funny business, I'll just do the same thing again.
Exactly. Okay, so we'll admit someone, and if you have a question, please I don't know if it's hard to say appropriate. But see, that's part of the issue too. People forget that we can discuss sex without being perverse.
Yeah, right.
Or disrespectful. I guess perverse is also a relative term though, but we can discuss it without you just being blatantly just disrespectful about it. So yeah, if someone would like to join in, please do ask a question. Yep, go ahead.
He's having trouble with the audio, it looks like.
3 people I have on that default that when they join on mute.
Oh,
So
Okay.
I will now cautiously unmute.
Right. Okay, let's make sure. If not, you're going to get X'd out.
Okay. James Nelson is now unmuted.
All right, James, do you have a question for us? Welcome, welcome.
No, not yet. I've just seen what's going on.
Okay. Hi, James. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're learning some things or entertained, if nothing else.
If nothing else, I think it has been an extremely informative conversation. I am so excited to order to order some of these books. And while we're waiting for somebody to come in, I will say that in teaching the art of fellatio class, I have women all the time who are like, okay, Dr. Lovejoy, you're trying to get us to suck our best dick, but what about these men that don't know how to perform cunnilingus? And so, yes. And so I have been.
Yes, that needs to be right.
It needs
That
to be
needs to be.
So, but here's the thing. Here's the issue with that. So many men think they already know what they're doing. Like women will admit, let me come to a class and let me learn something. Even if I think I'm good, let me come learn something. But men already think they know what they're doing. And then I'm like, how many of you will come to a class? Who would you be comfortable sitting in the class with? And what would you want? Who would you want the teacher to be? Because I can't teach it. That's not something I do. So I'm like, who do you guys want to teach this class? And so seeing those books, I really want to get my hand on those books.
Joe, again, tell us the first book. The first book was
Erotic, EROTIC, Erotic Mind by Jack Morin.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, spell that last name?
Morin, Morin.
Okay, and then the other one was?
Oh, Sex Tips for Straight Women by Gay Men.
Mm-hmm.
Sex Tips for Straight Women. By gay men. Who's the author?
By Gay Men. I don't know. I have the book somewhere in there. Damn
okay,
it.
we Google it.
Yeah, we can Google it.
We'll Google it.
You're talking to men,
Yep.
because there's a myth that black men don't perform cunnilingus. That's a myth, right?
Definitely a myth.
They better.
Definitely a myth.
And again, that's the myth. And I find that, this is the irony of that. How black people from history were sexualized, right? Get that big black buck, that Jezebel black woman, we're over-sexualized. But then also the stereotype is that we don't perform certain sexual acts. I find that very interesting. Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
It is. I always wonder where oral sex originated anyway. I haven't researched it, but I wonder how that was originated and how it has, it's not
maybe the pandemic happened and we got bored.
No, we looked at animals clean each other. Dogs clean each other. All animals clean each other in all areas. So we've seen that.
And was like,
I just wonder.
It looks like that feels good.
And it's just a conversation. I have a lot of conversations with parents who are still afraid to talk to their children about sex, and just getting them to talk about penis to vagina sex, just penetration is difficult. So when I get to talking about, okay, so have you talked to them about oral sex? It's like, nobody wants to have that, nobody wants to have that conversation. So it's interesting to think about what was the origin of it and how do we get people to parents, how do we teach people how to enjoy and perform those things? It's not a conversation that I think is being had for most people.
Well, I think that's a taboo word that we haven't said yet is pleasure. When we talk about pleasure, it's usually attached to hedonism. Like even in this pandemic, right? I've been eating a lot. I've been drinking a lot. Well, some of that is okay to do. I mean, it's not all bad to kind of go a little bit beyond what you normally do. We're in a pandemic. We're quarantined.
I definitely have.
Yeah, and so have I. I've gained a few pounds. I can feel it. I'm going to have to work on that. But the idea that sexual pleasure, our country and our culture and our world is more, there's more permission to talk about sexual trauma, sexual acting out of control sexual behaviors. then we talk about sexual pleasure. I think that's what we're
Mm.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
Interesting.
wait, can I say something? I would say that I would agree with a certain age group because these millennials kick ass. They talk about it all. They talk about it from the rooter to
That's
the
a good.
tutor,
That is a good point.
unapologetically.
It's a great point.
Exactly.
They get it in.
Yep.
Yes.
I agree, and I salute them for that because
Exactly.
like I'm trying to teach, like I've tried to teach my daughter. Look at your stuff. Look at it. Take a mirror, explore it, do what you need to do. Do not be ashamed to be one with your body. It's your treasure. You need to know it. If you're going to open it up to someone else, you need to know it first. And
that's good. You tell her that.
Me to get into my 30s and 40s to come to this, because as a teen in the 20s, I wasn't thinking about being so. Well, I always was kind of into sex, so I'm gonna take that back.
But Rocky, you know what I realized too? Because some of my clients, like I have a very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful young lady. She's actually one of my models. And when you said being in tune with yourself and explore, discover, and love yourself, because if you don't see, people think that just because our limbs is connected with us, that we're also connected with our body parts. We're not. Like Dr. Joe just scratched his head. That's automatically, right? But you don't just automatically grab your genitals. You see what I'm saying? So if you're not, you have to reach inside, become connected with your genitals. You have to be connected because it's so taboo that you're not. Look, you're not supposed to touch
yourself.
You don't even say. You don't even get a proper term. Vogo. But not you say your no place, your oochie coochie, and all these things. So when you're talking at a young age,
it's not your pocketbook. Oh my God, I hate that. Yeah, it's not your hoo-ha.
Exactly. So you're automatically being conditioned mentally to disconnect with your body parts because you're not even getting the proper terminology.
Yep.
So
exactly. And see, that's something I learned. That's something I learned as a social worker, though, because a lot of times when kids have been sexually abused, if they cannot adequately, properly describe where they were touched and how they were touched, a lot of times the testimonies in court are not admissible because they're not explicitly describing their genitals. You know, they're saying pocketbook, and then they can say, oh well, if he said his pocketbook, maybe he, you know, there could be, you know, that variation of, oh well, maybe they weren't talking about the sexual part when we know they are. But so that's why I've always taught my daughter, these are your breasts. My son, this is your penis, this is your scrotum, and telling him, yes, the colloquial term is balls or whatever, or for vagina, vulva, we say pussy, but yes, this is, or coochie, that's a big term.
Yeah, right.
But I've told my kids, these are your body parts, and that's part of the problem too. I think why our teen sex rate is so high in America. In other countries is not as high because they don't have what was that show that used to come on HBO? Was it Real Sex?
Yeah.
I love that series. That used to come on HBO where they would go to different countries and different places and show like different sexual things that were happening. I really thought that was like an excellent series to show how sex manifests around the world. And that's part of what you said.
It is good. I like what you're talking about in terms of women exploring their vulva and everything inside. Most men, straight men, have not explored their anus to look at it, let alone to touch it. I've had straight men say to me, I don't even like to wipe very deeply in there because it feels gay.
Oh, that's probably why they got so many train tracks in their drawers, though. When I was dating and single, you'd be wondering why you got so many shit tracks in your drawers because you're not wiping properly. Thank you, Dr. Joe, for shedding light on why the hell. But so how do you all react to this when people say stuff like that? Like, okay, we've got a lot of work to do. Like, you don't even want to wipe your ass properly because you're afraid of the stigma of being gay.
Yeah, the homophobia is just, it's so awful. Homophobia is so awful. And sometimes the people that have it the worst are the people that are gay themselves or have same-sex attraction. And again, same-sex attraction, just like Katrina's saying, doesn't necessarily mean you're gay.
You know, but that's the irony, Joe, because you would have thought, like, when, in my head, when you said I was sexually abused, I thought that you were abused by a man.
Yeah, right. That's the other thing.
Okay.
Rocky, somebody asked a question, but I couldn't read it. Went past too fast.
Okay, it says now, if only those men who are petrified of getting close to their anus went a little bit deeper and discovered that beautiful, beautiful, prostrate, life-changing, right? Because that's stimulation there.
Yeah.
Right. Like Dr. Tiffany said, all the nerve endings that are there, and it's just a hole. It's just a body part. It's not it doesn't have a sexual orientation.
Right. Right. I wouldn't have a problem with it if it wasn't so tight. Like exploring anal sex would not be an issue for me if it was elastic like my vagina. Like,
well, but it does lubricate.
It did, yeah.
It does lubricate, and you just might need to start off with something just a little bit smaller. That's all.
Probably
A
so.
thumbkin.
Because if hubby was a small guy, I wouldn't have an issue with it. But I'm just saying, like, So I could definitely. Shit.
Right. And what men don't realize is they have a prostate, right? And so the prostate being stimulated can make their orgasms even stronger, where women don't necessarily ever experience that, obviously, because they don't have a prostate.
Now, a girlfriend told me that the anal orgasm is like woof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, one day I'll experience it. I'm open to it, but I'm scared because I don't want my booty hole to be.
Oh my God.
Give us a little crash course in astral sex.
Yeah.
Katrina.
Rocky, I wouldn't really want you to play with that.
Oh.
So I make it.
Well, I mean, just tell to our listeners so they
just
can
Google it. I wouldn't even. I mean, people Google astro. First of all, people Google astro before you do anything. Before you go to astro sex, Google astro, because that could be a very dangerous thing if you're not properly taught. Okay, because that's you getting out of your body, and that's your soul and your spirit completely somewhere else.
I was talking about like ASTRAL, astro, not ASTRO.
That's what I thought you were saying.
ASTRAL, astro. Yes.
Wait a minute, okay, all right, see, that's, okay, so astral, ASTRAL.
Exactly, yes.
Because I was thinking outer space or something, like, I didn't know, I was.
You are out of space, you out of your body, you're definitely out of your body.
Okay.
Look, I have not been going to sleep at night. I've been up at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock in the morning. Now, thanks to Katrina, my ass is going to be Googling astro.
And watch, Dr. Tiffany, you're going to love it.
Okay.
I'm excited. Rocky, I don't want you to try it because you'll go full throttle. I don't want you to try it yet.
Is it, that's a bad thing? Okay, can I include the hubby, or that's not a good thing? Like,
I just think it could be dangerous.
Oh shit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Listen, let me tell you, I love this conversation. I have learned so
Me too.
much.
That's part of why I wanted to have this still. I'm like, let's get our mind off coronavirus. And that's what I'm saying. Even during the pandemic, I don't know if you all remember that song. It was from like the late 80s, early 90s. They were like, people are still having sex. I have to look it up, Google it. It was a song that was on MTV. But people are, no matter what, that's one thing that hopefully is a constant. Even if you don't have a partner. So what do you all recommend for people who don't have a partner, though? Because I'm blessed.
I am all about autoerotic sex. If you know Betty Dobson wrote a book many, many years ago. I forget what it's called. Like, we just talked about it on another podcast I was on.
Is that DOBSON?
DOBSON about masturbation. She's the mother of masturbation, if you don't know her. And I hope that this whole pandemic, one of the good things that come out of it is people allowing themselves to have autoerotic sex. Look at porn. Watch erotica. Allow yourself to have webcam sex if you want to. Be careful you're not going to be recorded. There are rules to not show your face, that kind of thing. But it's okay to bring out your vibrator. Jack off, Jill off, whatever you want to do. This is the time, especially because of the. You ever hear that, Jack and Jill off? I love that.
Oh, I love it. Jill off. Is that when women are masturbating in?
Yes.
One thing I could recommend is, that shower head. If you have like a nice shower head.
Yes.
5 or 6 speeds.
Yes. Listen, I could have had my virginity a lot longer if I would have explored that. I did not stumble across that until I was pregnant with my second child and could not reach to clean myself. And it wasn't until I reached up and grabbed that to try to get under my stomach.
talking about clitoral stimulation, baby.
Yes.
Hey. Hey.
Well, that's
Hey.
good, but also try it in the tub.
Here's Hubby. Did you do it?
Look, try it in the tub also, Dr. Tiffany, because I do a lot of core workouts in the tub.
Ooh.
So you can also have a core orgasm in the tub. Just let that, especially if you have to. I have a jacuzzi, but you had a little jet stream thing. Have that jet stream going on that tutorial. Oh my goodness! And you do like little body lifts, almost like sit-ups in the water. You're working on your core. You're losing weight, and you're stimulated. Pleasure, Dr. Joe. Pleasure.
Yes.
I love that term corgasm. I love when wordsmithing like that.
I love it. Me
You
too.
know?
So let me ask you, when we said asexual, you all ever, or first let me open it up to see if we have, thank you, James, for your question, or comment, I should say. Do we have any other participants who'd like to chime in? How does that work, Robin? Or do we just kind of let another person in, or?
Yeah, we have more people on the call. I'm just instructing them to use the chat feature.
Okay.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yep, let's do that. Let's do that, because it's going to take you longer to type that nastiness if you want to.
Yeah.
That's why I love writing. Gives you a minute to think about what you're about to type out. So while we are waiting for someone to put something into the chat room, please feel free, questions, comments. I have learned a lot, even if this isn't your thing necessarily. I've learned a lot. That's why part of the reason why I love sex, because it's such a complex topic, and it has so many levels to it that people don't even realize or allow themselves to open to. So I want to ask about if you all have ever, or I guess this would be a question for all three of you, if you've ever encountered someone who's asexual.
I have. I've had I've had many clients where, asexual isn't just having no sex drive. That can be one way. But then there are gray sexuals, they call themselves, where they do have a sex drive, just not toward people or not to very many people. And so they have a whole sex life with themselves. And they have a lot of autoerotic interests, and they can have webcam sex, and talking about sex, but they're not necessarily as sexual as the rest of us. So, but asexual is real.
Ooh.
I kind of came in contact with more asexuals that's pretty much introverts. Have you experienced that, Dr. Joe?
Not always. I see where you're going with it. And sometimes they can
Like
be,
if they're an introvert, they like to be to themselves. And
sometimes they're on the spectrum, right? So there's a lot of people who are on the spectrum of autism or Asperger's aren't interested in sex. But I have seen many people that are very extroverted, but they're also asexual.
Okay.
And they're not disgusted by sex. They're just not interested. They don't have a drive.
Is it something hormonal, maybe? Is there some type of chemical imbalance?
Well, so they would say, now they're saying, it's not, don't pathologize us. It's just another way of being sexual, of being not just non-sexual. And it doesn't come from a problem, like we would have said about homosexuality, right? How did they get that way? Like they have that same argument.
Interesting.
I had a gay guy in my practice who was very ashamed of being asexual, because the myth about gay men is we're all fucking, we're sucking, we're doing all this stuff, hypersexual, right?
Yep.
And he really didn't want it. He wanted to be somebody like that, but he wasn't. That wasn't his nature.
Absolutely. And I think those are some of the stereotypes that a lot of people don't realize, that those who are gay or bisexual are hypersexual, when there are plenty of people out here who are heterosexual by definition, who are hypersexual as well. And so James is saying, however, what's the line between introversion and gray sexual? As in, some folks like myself get horrible anxiety prior to an encounter. I would never mark myself as asexual. I'm very proud of my interests in kink, but I'm curious who is stuck with anxiety and is marked as asexual.
No, the two would be separate. Your anxiety and being introverted doesn't necessarily, it might be correlated to being asexual, but it's not causal. There's no necessarily a connection. The anxiety might prevent somebody from being sexual. The introversion might prevent them from going to be sexual with another person, but that's different than being asexual. Where asexual is, I'm not even interested in connecting with somebody. My anxiety is not stopping me. There's just no desire.
So has some trauma maybe happened though to make them asexual, or it's
No.
just like that's the way you were born, or
That's how they're saying it now, as a biological orientation. Trauma can cause people to be sexually averse, so have an aversion, and then they might misdiagnose or mislabel themselves as asexual, but they're not. It's the trauma that's in the way. For asexuals, it's just how they are.
Mm-hmm. This reminds me of a conversation like a question from Dan Savage would have. You all ever read Dan Savage, Savage Love? I love him. From Metro Times. He's like one of my sex role models.
He's got a huge presence now, a podcast and lots of, He's the one who came up with monogamish. Have you ever heard that term, monogamish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that, monogamish. I love him. I would love to connect with him. He's like one of my idols. I've always read his Savage Love, and I love his column in the Metro Times.
He's so open. He's so out there. Yeah, monogamish is I'm a little bit open, right? Right? It's sort of like being, we were talking about this whole sexual fluidity, where you can be heteroflexible, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're heterosexual, but you can be flexible with somebody of the same gender. Somebody comes around, and there's something about that person in that time and that place, you can be homoflexible.
Well, I guess from what my understanding is, pansexual is that you're not saying you're bisexual, you're not saying you're heterosexual, is that you're just attracted to people, you're attracted to energy, is what I'm...
Yes, I did a whole podcast on this. So it's like bisexual is multiple genders, where gender plays a role, where pansexual is everyone. And actually what this woman said was, it could even be people in the same experience. So you might be enjoying the same kind of concert, the same kind of sport, and suddenly you want to have sex with the people around you. Anyways, but that's what pansexual, and I never realized, like, why do I feel this way? She said because pansexuality means that you can have an experience can cause you to be sexual.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Right. So wait, Joe, I want to get back to you and your husband don't have penetrative sex. So what pleasures you? How do you...
So, oral sex, masturbation, kissing, rubbing, kinky fetish role play, talking, you know what I mean, licking.
Okay.
See?
So many, right.
So I think that was a really good question, and I think what that addresses that a lot of us align intimacy and sex with an end goal.
Yeah.
And the end goal has to always lead to penetrative sex.
Yes.
Yes, because I've had the issue where I'll tell my husband, like, don't start teasing me because I'm gonna want to do it. Like,
right.
For me, like, if we're having oral sex, if you licking me, I'm gonna want you to penetrate. Like that's just been a thing for me. Like, some women I know it's enough where they have an orgasm, in which I have from the oral sex, but me, I'm like, ooh, I'm more penetrative.
You still want it.
Yeah. The oral sex is going to want me, is priming me for the penetrative sex. But you're right. I think too, Tiffany, people forget that intimacy and sex are two different things, and it doesn't always have to be. Because there are times where I'll say to hubby, like, yeah, I don't want to do it. I just want to cuddle, even though sometimes it might lead to that. But it's just having that closeness with that person.
Yes.
So, and I do think things that happen in our childhood definitely affect how we show up in our sex lives. And there, like, my husband is definitely more conservative when it comes to conversations about sex, because he's an alpha male. Like, he's like, we don't need to be doing all this talking. And of course, with me, psychologist, because I'm a psychology major as well, and a sapiosexual, like, I like to, my mind is stimulated. And then my thing is, like, I believe that couples, if we're intimate and you're my sex partner, you're the person I should be having this conversation with, if no one else. And I agree that couples sometimes don't have those conversations, or sometimes they have them at the wrong moments. And so I'm hoping that some people have listened and this has been an eye-opener for them.
It will take, Katrina and Dr. Joe are way advanced. Like, I think for people that are and not using vanilla in a negative or adverse way, but I think for most people that are considered vanilla, traditional monogamous people who do not explore sexuality and intimacy on a deeper level. I mean, for those of us in this conversation, we're all like, yes, I can understand what you're saying, Dr. I can understand Katrina's talking about orgasms without touching people, and he's gay, but he doesn't have penetrative sex, and we can have this conversation and be like, oh, okay. A lot of people are not.
Tell me more.
They are not there.
No.
They are, this conversation was like high school and college, and a lot of people are still in pre-K. Okay, so this was this to me, these types of conversations, it would take multiple conversations like this on an intimate, consistent basis for a lot of people to even get it.
Yeah.
Like it is.
Yeah.
A lot of people are still on a very simplistic, just a simplistic level when it comes to sexuality. And I think that is the part for me that I'm still just trying to get you to have sex more with your spouse, get you to identify what you enjoy sexually, get you to be okay with the fact that you might like a finger in your butt, It's just,
right.
It's just, I think,
I can take the finger. I can take the finger.
It is just getting people to open up and enjoy and to even be in the room and to have space for these types of conversations. And so I'm so grateful to have been in this space today. Rocky, I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot from Katrina, from Dr. Joe. Maybe one day we can all get together and do something. I think that would be amazing.
Yes.
So do I.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. But it's so thank you. And so for those of the people that are going to hear this that are overwhelmed.
right. That
are overwhelmed, I think it's just important to allow people to have the autonomy to figure out what your sex, intimacy, life, relationships, what it looks like for you, but don't be afraid to learn something new. I just think that
try something new.
Try something new and identify who you are and identify the mindsets that may have created you to be the person who you are right now. Because some people are going to hear this conversation and they are going to be struggling. They're going to be struggling. I really hope people are open-minded. Hopefully, if they're listening to this conversation and they've made it this far, that they are open-minded to being receptive to some of the things that have been discussed, because this has been a lot.
Yeah, it's heavy. Yeah. Hey, Katrina, I want to wrap this up, and I want you to just give a quick 15-second blurb and let people know where they can find you. And then once you're done, I want Dr. Joe and Dr. Tiffany to tell people where they can find them.
Okay, I would just like to say, I like to tap into what Dr. Tiffany said. I want to also add that always remember, people, that there are different versions of yourself. If you are the same person today than you were yesterday, before any type of sexual act, sex without substance or sexual with substance, you have to identify yourself. There's different versions of yourself. So just because you may not be where we are at today doesn't mean you're not going to tap into it tomorrow. It may come back to you, and just be in love and tune with yourself, because it all starts with you. You can't love no one else until you love yourself. And when you're able to love yourself, you're able to be creative, mind, body, and soul. My name is Love Maya. You can find me on _sex frequencies. My PR changed my social media name because I'm creating a thing called Sex Frequencies. So once again, that's sexpert _sex frequencies on Instagram. Love Maya on Facebook. Mysteries of Sex with Love Maya on YouTube.
Okay. All right, Dr. Joe.
All right, so I didn't say this, but I have a little booklet out there on Amazon called Erotic Orientation to help people understand the difference between sexual orientation and erotic orientation.
Okay.
It's like a 50-page little booklet. I use it as a primer for my clients. I've written other books for gay men on male sexuality, on straight men who have sex with men. I have other stuff out there. I write for Psychology Today. on a weekly basis. I try to do it weekly. I have a podcast called Smart Sex, Smart Love. And I am that co-director of Modern Sex Therapy Institutes for PhDs and clinical sexology and certifications. But really, I love what everybody has said. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot of different ways to say things as well. I like what Katrina said, that I didn't find sex, sex found me. I love that. And Dr. Tiffany, I loved the idea in saying that the idea that we are the gold standard in our culture is penetration, that it isn't all about penetration, and that you're teaching oral sex skills or just conversations to other people is just awesome. And Rocky, I'm so glad I met you. I'm so glad my producer is the one who found you out there.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad. I'm honored. I'm
Same here. I'm honored to be amongst all three of you. Thank you.
Definitely see you later, not goodbye.
Yeah, good.
I love it.
Yes, and I am on Facebook. I am Dr. Tiffany Lovejoy. That is not my business page. That's actually my, that's just me. That's just who I am. On Instagram, I am Dr.Lovejoy Therapist. And again, that one is my fun page. It is my fun page, but I do teach women's empowerment courses after the quarantine is over. If you guys need to learn how to suck some dick, do a sexy lap dance.
Y'all need to learn now, so after quarantine they can be ready. Do it while quarantining.
Yes, please. Look me up by all means if you are having some difficulties, in your relationship. You guys need some help right now. If you're a parent and you need to learn how to have conversations with your children about sex to create, body positive, sex positive relationships with your children. I do all of that. So thank you so much.
You just gave me an idea for another show, Dr. Tiffany.
Okay, good. Very good.
That's a very important conversation, having conversations with our children about sex.
Oh, yeah,
I
totally.
thank you all. Definitely, especially with all our kids are exposed to, that we need to be having those healthy conversations with them as their parents and not be afraid.
Mm-hmm.
So I thank you all. I appreciate you. Thanks for hanging in there with our technical difficulties. Shout out to Robin Kinney of Motor City Woman Radio. And definitely, I can't wait to repost this. Like you said, some people are going to be struggling, but that's okay. We'll repost it so they can get a telehealth session in to digest it.
Yes.
So I appreciate you all. Enjoy. Please stay safe. I pray that you all stay safe and that your families are safe through all of this. And I appreciate you and thank you and have a great night.
Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Namaste.
Bye. Thank you.